Cheers.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Well, that's what you say sometimes.
Good night.
It can be a greeting or it can be a goodbye.
It's kind of
Night.
like aloha.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's
Oh, I
some-
never
maybe
thought
some
about
guys
that one.
from the West Coast watching, and it's not quite night for them yet.
That's true.
We're joined by Rachel from Deep Roots Tissue Culture. You guys saw her on the last podcast interview with Scobo and I. We asked her some questions. She's back to answer some more questions and join the panel for some cannabis discussion here. So welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Chad, if you have any questions, make sure you post those.
I have a burning
We'll
question
ask
for you,
her.
Rachel. I'm going to hit you with it from the very beginning because I don't know if you're familiar with autoflowering cannabis. I'm sure you probably have heard about it. But is
Yes.
tissue culture a way to finally clone and save an autoflower if you were to grow to one and find one?
So this is really funny because I actually just recently talked about this with Earl from Regal Beagle Seed Company, and we kind of had this discussion. And I was like, I don't know that I've ever tissue cultured. I've never tissue cultured any autoflowers. And we were thinking because there's like a time limit. I think what you would end up doing is just having it like flower in the vessel. I don't think you could like infinitely save it because it's still going to kind of be on its clock, But I'm not sure.
But does it slow it down so much that like puts it almost in a stasis? Like does it give us 2-3 years?
Well, my one thing was thinking maybe we could do like a cold storage and that might like delay it a little bit. Or even like maybe synthetic seeds or something like that would work for that if you could get
There you go. Yeah.
level high enough on the recovery, that at least people would have it. But we also kind of talked about like a true breeding autoflower so that like all the seeds were the same. You know what I mean? Like kind of like the H1 generation where
there's a company that's pretty infamous. I don't want to say famous, infamous in the cannabis scene called Phylos Bioscience, who I don't want to get into too much of it, but they've now come out with saying they came out as a company saying that they were going to store genetics so everybody could test genetics and say that they were this. So they went through and got all these genetics from people, and then they came out with their own autoflower strain that was completely homogenous, and it's as like each one's the same, and they come in seed form now.
Okay.
So they've used everyone's genetics to find the markers for the different alleles, and then
Which, to be fair, I think Confident Cannabis is in a good position to be doing the same thing.
I saw that. Yeah, I would think the same thing that the Sai Lab uses.
Yep.
The idea behind the genetic universe was a good idea. They just got greedy.
Greed, man.
The galaxy,
Yeah,
greedy ruined, or the genetic galaxy, like a map of genetics. But I really hope somebody with a better, well, I guess
ethics,
moral fortitude,
Yeah, it needs to be open
does
source,
it.
for people to really benefit from that kind of a project. Like people need to be able to contribute to an open source database.
Exactly. We were just talking about it today at work, and TJ was like, the only website I trust these days is SeedFinder for like looking up, lineage and like is it accurate? Because you can go to Leafly and some of that stuff is pretty inaccurate, but so it would be nice for the scientific cannabis community to have a map or some sort of recording of genetics so that there's no more flamming. But we'll get there. And
do you think we will?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, do you think we'll ever get to the point where that will be public information and 100%. Not behind some?
I think if we come to 100% legalization, yes, because people are going to want to start patenting their strains. So for the only way to do that would have a DNA signature to say this strain is, specifically different than this one because of this.
But
X,
would
Y,
that be necessarily a public and?
I think it would. I mean, common sense would tell us that there would federal legalization would happen, and then there would have to be that system in place for patenting, which means we would have to like tell the government, can you regulate this? Can you?
Oh, we don't tell them; they tell us. They're gonna.
Well, yeah, I know, but like it would come to that point. and then they would develop a system that would suck, and we'd have to go back and tell them, hey, your system sucks for like 10 more years, and then finally there'd be a scientific based, non-greedy, non-biased, just simple, record of all the genetics.
Dude, I'll keep my fingers
I
crossed.
think it'll happen. It's going to take a while. Think about how many years it took with agricultural crops.
I don't know. I honestly don't know how long was it, because I have a feeling it's not going to be in our lifetime, and I regret saying that, but I'm worried about it.
The technology's here. It literally, Phylos was doing it. They just and then they went and ruined their reputation by holding on to people's genetics. So
I mean, I think there's a good place though for like a nonprofit to enter, an open source, a nonprofit to sponsor that kind of project and have it be open source, maybe even like crowdfunded or something if you could,
Right.
People would contribute to that, especially if it meant that like they could use the data that it generated,
We need like a combination of SeedFinder and GitHub. You know what I'm saying? Like something that's like true open source and like just pure data, and something that everyone can contribute to, but maybe like not maybe like quite like Wikipedia, but I guess that's kind of where it would end up.
I mean, I like to be positive, and this is not positive, but I think that this community has been kind of screwed over, like the example of Phylos so many times. It's like when your first exposure to a true, legit scientific community is that they turn around and capitalize on your work. It makes people really hesitant to ever get involved in any kind of a project like that again. And it's a sad truth, but I mean, man, I see it a lot in this cannabis scene where people just, they get taken advantage of a lot.
Big time.
Oh,
man.
for sure. I think, I may just be, imagining, but I think technology eventually would get so cheap and good that somewhere out there would be like Rachel says, some sort of dude that's just open source doing data, and he would just be he'd be going around to the caregiver events and all the events, buying shit,
valuable,
testing it himself.
Think about
Why?
this.
There are good people out there.
They're good people, but they don't have enough money and willpower before.
That's what I'm saying. Eventually, technology won't matter, and the dude's just gonna be able to do it at his home and map out DNA.
But only for his grow. You know what I'm saying?
Got
like,
people
to be able to get.
Okay, are you guys ready for this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right,
I don't know.
I can't just like sit here and be like, I wonder. So I'm like actively looking this up, and apparently Cloud Life Sciences has this open cannabis project, this 1,000 cannabis genomes project, which is so far a data set of approximately 850 strains of cannabis available in BigQuery. So I'm wondering, it looks like it's publicly accessible. So this data set. So maybe someone's already like on the way there. Maybe it's.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think there's some they're worried about greed, but like, yeah, greed's out there, but there's also a lot of scientists and things that have happened that have been open source vaccines. There's a lot of big vaccines that the guys just gave them away. I mean, yeah, there's always the bad guy.
Community. Like we have really struggled to get anywhere in the last like 30 years, I feel like, in comparison to the 30 years previous. So I think at a smaller scale, I think it's possible and it's doable. And yeah, if the people hold to ethics and morals, yeah, it's possible. But I think if we get to like a federal scale and we put this in the hands of someone with enough resources to actually do it, it's not going to go well for us that are home growers. Like it's kind of idealistic, I think. Unfortunately, I mean, maybe I'm just being pessimistic.
Yeah, I think you're just being pessimistic because, I mean, I don't know. It's all up in the air. It's all speculation right now.
Right.
But like, that's everything. That's every industry, everything that's new, every new invention and everything. It could, yeah, sure. Bad greed man could get it, but there's also a lot of good people. Or I mean, us right here.
Plenty of genetically modified tomatoes and stuff, but you can still go and buy rare heirloom tomatoes.
There's a guy with 1,200 apple strains that aren't on the market that he managed to save.
And I think Rachel makes a good point about the crowdsourcing, like the crowdfunding of it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to compete with these people that have the resources to really just put you out of business when it comes down to it, So if you have a community backing you and they're voting with their dollar, well, then I think that's where you're going to have a chance.
Well,
then
yeah,
it's
and
ownership, people own it at that point. It's not just in the hands of like the corporation. Everyone that contributed their own genomes and their own money, they own that.
yeah, and for Growley earlier, the technology, how we've advanced in 30 years, or the last 30 years compared to the 30 years before that on cannabis, we've learned so much.
On cannabis, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that's the underground science that we've been doing as home growers. It's not the academic science that's been
There's
happening.
been
'cause it
tons
looks-
of
Bro,
white
there's been
pages.
fucking
We've
way
had so many
a
white
shit ton
pages
of
in the
academic
last 10 years that blow my mind that there's some nerd, no offense, nerd guys who probably don't even smoke, but they're checking this stuff out now. I'm like, heck yeah.
They couldn't
Like
even
all
study
the
it before
Delta
10 years
9,
ago.
all the
But that's
CBNs,
what
all
I'm
that.
saying. Sequence, yeah, maybe in the last 10 years, but not really in the last 30. If you look at the full scheme
Well,
of
you
art
might
I
life.
mean, I'm
find
just
what
going
the
off
last
of what
10
you said.
years
You
is in
compare
the
this
last 30
30 years to the last 30 years
But
before
I'm
that. You're
not
talking
talking about
1960 to
cannabis science.
1990.
I'm talking about academic science. And if we put this science in the hands of the academics, it's not going to go as well as you think it is, man.
Oh, I see. You're saying the whole academia and science
Yes,
is now is all shit.
That's where the pessimism
I
comes
don't believe
in,
that. I don't believe
think
that all the science out there is bad people and bad intentions and owned by corporations.
Well, that's why I brought up my point about tomatoes. It's like, tomatoes have been commercialized. There's heirloom varieties and there's completely commercial, varieties that were completely researched and
Those have never been
hybridized.
illegal. Those have been illegal the whole time.
Never illegal.
right?
So there will be an eventuality for cannabis where there's the same thing, where there's heirloom type varieties and then commercial F1 type
I'm gonna
super
keep
stable.
that lime skunk and that clementine around as long as I can. I promise.
So I don't think. And then on the other side is breeders can't keep the genetics away from researchers and people that want to modify the genetics anyway. So like if you grow
but when patents step in, then you've got a legal battle.
Sure. But if you grow a good enough plant and somebody gets their hands on it, it's just like the problem they have right now. Like I can rename your clone, I can make it whatever I want. And
yeah, but when they
Really
can
running
genetically test it, they can be like, hey, look, this guy planted our Monsanto corn crop
As a home grower, what are you worried about?
Right, nothing.
You're not
But
selling it.
That's
so,
where all
so-
of this information seems to be originating from. Not that it's where it's like headed, but kind of originating from, right? And that's where our goals are. I don't think that our goals are going to match the goals of the academia, if you will.
But I think you bring up a good point, though, and I think you're right. I think a lot of home growers won't like the reason that Monsanto can go around and sue those small farmers is because their genetic material is patentable because they've taken a gene
right.
from a different species and put it into like corn, and so now it's different than corn used to be, and so they can patent that. But like for all of our current strains of cannabis, like there's nothing outside of what nature already does.
Right. They're all varietals, right?
But how long did it take for us to get to that heirloom variety like Sequence is talking to literally nowadays having to go and try to find and probably pay more for those heirloom varieties than just this mass produce what is now the standard of corn, which in my
it's not even a
barely
desirable heirloom is not even desirable to anyone except for a breeder. It's not desirable to smoke. It's not desirable maybe for a hash producer. Maybe a hash producer.
But what I'm saying is that in terms of corn, just strictly speaking on corn, because this is the only
corn. Okay.
I know, but
weed.
No, we are, but I'm just relating it to corn, right? So heirloom corn, I'm hoping this year does much better than the new standardized corn of 2022 because that was garbage and it didn't work for me, right? So I'm trying.
Yeah,
these
but how much
seeds.
glyphosate or whatever did you spray on it?
0.
Well, there's your problem.
Amateur.
You forget what it's been commercialized for.
I think you guys are all missing the point of what I'm trying to say. That is where we're going to end up if we allow academia and the corporations and the federal government to take control of where this is going to go.
You're grouping 3 groups together to me that
It's
are
all the
totally
same,
different.
dude.
You can't
No,
you
it's
can't
all
put
the same.
you can't there's no 18, 20-year-old dudes, women that have a genuine interest in learning and inventing things out
Dude,
there is what you're telling me?
You're talking about
And they have
undergraduate
they'll
students.
never have
We're talking about with TA like research, like people that are leading universities, like people.
I'm
that
talking
have
about the whole collective world. because that's how we've got cannabis this far. Like,
Well, I
I
think
mean,
you'll
you can.
Imagine,
That's an
you know,
argument.
imagine
I
the
don't even
legalization.
know.
How
I
much
don't even know
that's going to
why.
open up
Yeah.
research.
Why
Even in
you
your
go
corn
outside if you
example,
think that like it's
Yeah.
that bad these days. There's still good shit out there.
even in
Right.
your
There
You have
corn
to go
is.
seek
There
example,
it
is
there's
out.
also
And I
giant
go
that,
seek it
companies
out and I
trying to
buy
make
it and I try to
better
grow it.
corn. You know,
you know,
They're-
like there's like these huge like 1,000-acre cannabis farms. You know that they're not like loving their plants and employing organic methods. You know, it's just like a huge like Monsanto field. But like that's why you don't like support that.
Yeah.
And some
Right.
people will, but those are probably the people that would have like supported the Mexican brickweed back in the day.
Well, we didn't have a choice. Okay, listen.
I think
And hey, I
ultimately
said it
when
on
you
the
get-
state capitol steps. I'll say it again. There's room for that. There's room for everybody. That's the thing, is we shouldn't be pushing anybody out. We should be celebrating growing weed. And it should be free, because even the garbage weed, it has some medical value to somebody, and eventually that somebody's gonna not get high off of that anymore and has to go to the good stuff, because there's a thing called tolerance. But so I don't think we should. I mean, I'm sure we should look down at them for their bad practices. Yes, of course. But I still don't think that there's like corporate weed is terrible in any way. I think it brings access to people who don't have access, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think we're ignoring the factor of like these giant companies are still competing with each other. So even in your example of corn, and if you imagine every commercial variety is patented, someone's still trying to create the next best one that they can patent and sell. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's just kind of the nature of the beast.
And even with corn and tomatoes, you still have all of your people that just grow it themselves, people that want their own
Yep.
tomatoes, that want and I think cannabis is the same way. You have so many people that just would rather grow their own because they can control the conditions and what their inputs are.
Do you guys think that cannabis will be more so? Because we all know, I mean, especially as farmers and even indoor farmers, we probably know a lot of people that grow their own vegetables, grow their own, even if it's on the back deck or whatever, or it's an acre plot in their, on their farm or whatever. We probably know a lot of people that are growing their own food. Do you think that cannabis will be represented more in that way than just vegetables, flowers, things like that are?
I think it largely depends on price point. I mean, I think a lot of people that grow tomatoes, but how many people do you know that grow all their own food?
Oh,
So
zero.
it's like
I know 0 people.
right?
Yeah.
So like, if you look at it that way, it's like if cannabis becomes cheap enough that it's like tomatoes, so to speak, it makes that choice a little bit different for a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess even now I'm trying to think, it's probably like less than 5% of people I know even grow any of their own food. You know what I
Right,
mean? Let alone close
because
to
it's so much more convenient to get it from whatever other source,
Right.
So that's kind of what you're going to be battling against, I think, as far
Yeah.
as.
And that's why I say there's room for that corporate weed, because that's good enough for them.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing there. I'm just trying to push back as much as I can until you guys break me,
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be out of everyone's hands when,
Yeah.
if there's any sort of federal
national
legalization, the commercial, it is going to be what it is at the end of the day.
Well, I'm gonna keep growing, guys. I don't know about you, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really fun. I really enjoy it, especially in the greenhouse environment where you don't have all the overhead costs of doing it, in your basement or whatever. Get a nice controlled environment and
like a
enjoy
heater
doing
and
it
an
at home.
LED and,
Yeah.
insulation
and insulation.
Well, and electricity.
The stuff that everyone puts in their greenhouses now.
Well, you don't have to. It's like, do you want to grow AAA perfect stuff, or do you just want to have plants so you didn't have to spend a bunch of money on it?
Listen, I just wanted
decide.
free light. Okay, that's why I built a greenhouse.
Exactly.
I knew
that
all
was the idea I always had.
And
Yeah.
it works amazing. It worked without all of the extra bullshit. It works amazing.
I'd still love to build one, and that's one of those things that, man, even if like for whatever reason I don't need to use it to grow cannabis, guess what? I'm growing my own food in that thing. It's
right.
it's
all
ready.
the spare spots. You're like, oh, what can I put over in this corner? What can I put here? What fits when the cannabis plants are small?
I got away from that ideology of like jamming everything everywhere though. Now it's more like I better have room to walk. I
Dude.
better have room to get around this.
I agree, Baked. I had that conversation no fewer than 3 times today. I told a couple people, like, I have lights off right now. I don't have I'm not at full capacity because I didn't time my plants to be properly, like, staged at full capacity. So guess what? I turned off a couple lights because there's no point in blowing, a full light or 2 on side
Yeah.
lighting, which was really what it turns out to be. Like, I'll just focus on the quality of the plants that I have in there and not waste money otherwise, and I'm not going to just stuff plants in like I have in the past because, hey, guess what? I might get a couple ounces off this plant, why not? Like, it's better than letting it go to waste or whatever. Well, it's like, all right, let's just chill out.
Yeah, I've noticed that putting those extra 4 plants in there makes the quality of all the rest of them go down. And you're like, man,
Yeah.
I really wish that I didn't do that, and I could have seen all around the plants, and the bottom half of all of them would still get light, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I've moved away from. But so like today we were organizing the veg room, and we're gonna have so much space. Like we'll have a space for a table if we want, really, stuff like that. So you can
Until
sit
you
down
start
and
picking a bunch of moms, then you're going to run out of so much.
well,
space.
yeah, that's what I learned at work is really, the moms will get out of control and
Then you can
takes up
call
half
Rachel
our
and have
room.
her tissue culture use some stuff.
Well,
we
that's
don't
what
have-
we wanted to ask about her, to ask her, and I'm glad she's on the show. Is like, how big of an area do you need the tissue culture? Would you think for like,
homegrown.
let's say 16 strains. Let's say you want to store a rotation or some sort of variation of 16 strains. What do what do
I
you
mean, it
need?
really depends on, like how many you're going to get out at a time. But for 16, you could probably do it in like, I mean, it'd be tight, but you could probably do it in like 300 square feet.
Okay.
Like I think the most important part for like your actual, where you're going to have your plants is just keeping the temperature really consistent.
Okay.
So that's the thing that you want to worry about the most, like having an area where your plants can live where the temperature is very consistent so that there's no fluctuation.
Imagine that you're almost building a grow room, right? I mean, you have all the environmental
What
controls
temp?
other
Like
than
a
the
little
lighting.
bit colder?
Like
Or
75 is a good
oh,
temp. Yeah, I mean,
so a grow room, yeah.
I keep mine a
Mm.
little bit cooler depending on like what's going on, but the temperature fluctuations can cause like the humidity and the vessels to fluctuate, and then the moisture comes out of your media, and then it gets in the air, and then when the temperature drops, it turns, it condenses, and you've got
Hey,
water in your vessel, and
so
so it's not ideal.
Is VPD
Okay.
a thing when it comes to what you do?
I mean, like I explain because a lot of the people that I teach are growers, so I'll use that
So
to kind of
as a
explain
reference.
to them.
Okay,
Yeah, as a
okay.
reference for like what, because I mean, it really is at some point, you don't want these vessels to be too moist, but it's also because that water will just condense and then it's around your plants, and that's not good.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the focus, but it's the reason why what's happening is happening, and you're trying to avoid that. That's fair.
And those temperature fluctuations like really create that.
Yeah, it's like when
So-
you wake up and there's condensation in the morning. It's pretty simple thing. That's why I make sure I cover my grill at night, which I'm gonna have to check on that soon.
So what about and then cleanliness? You have to does it have to be like I've done fungi before, ultra clean,
Same
okay.
thing.
So the grow room you might not want to be in, even a nice grow room. I don't know.
You definitely would want a separate space.
Yeah. Okay.
Like when
you
I
can
say
shut doors and have a flow hood and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you've done, mushroom cultures, people get away with, like, I wouldn't recommend doing like that still air technique, like a glove.
Yeah,
box.
that's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really tricky just because everything grows faster than, plants. You could do
Okay.
it like if you were a hobby grower and you were just like messing around and you didn't want to spend a lot of money and you were just trying with a couple strains for fun. But if you're talking like, I want to reliably count on having 16 strains, you're going to want to like invest in some like space, whether it's like some tents that you set up, that you can control the temperature within there. Like I have everything kind of like partitioned off even within partitions. So there's like zones even in between going into places, you know, because again, it's spores and mold and all those things. So I'm trying to keep my situation as clean as possible.
Is it similar to what we would call like a lung room, where like for in growing, where we have like basically a room that's feeding all of the rest of our actual priority environments, the environment, you know what I mean? Like this room is, and it might just be the room,
room
that's
inside
around,
a
like,
room is what
tents.
you're
I think
say.
she's talking like your blast chamber thing, like
Like a
a room in a
C1J1.
room, you know,
Yeah.
a
kind of, like-
Russian doll.
Yeah, like I have
Nesting
a big open space for where I do most of my tissue culture. And so like my hoods I have off in a separate place so that like they're not in the general air, you know, and
Can-
like where you,
Rachel,
when you
I'm
walk
sorry
in-
to interrupt you. Can I just stop you right there? And for me and all the rest of the viewers that have heard this term 1,000 times, every time tissue culture gets brought up, what the hell is a flow hood? Is that something that sits above my oven that sucks out all the smoke or something? Like, can I just put a tissue culture lab on top of my stove? What's happening?
So it's like reversey, right? So your hood on top of your stove is sucking stuff out, which is like what we would want if we were dealing with like really hazardous chemicals. We would want them out, right? Not in our space. But what we're actually wanting is clean air flowing on us. So laminar is the term for like this like filtering that is super, super thick. And it's just you're putting air over your environment in a very controlled manner. So it's coming and it's in a very like consistent amount of flow, and it's coming on your hood over your surface. And so you're working in a clean surface.
Any idea what kind of CFMs those operate at? Like the ones we're looking at maybe right now? Is that like, because for I remember a general rule of thumb way back in the day, like maybe 10 years ago or something, when I started growing, was like, yeah, exchange the room or the air in your room 3 times a minute or something like that. So it's like you got to calculate the CFMs based on that. Is there any sort of rule like that when it comes to this?
If you were building your own, yes. So like you can kind of take wood and construct your own box and get a giant filter and put it in the front, and you can get a fan and put that on the back of the box to push the air into the box, and then through that HEPA filter to give you that laminar flow. And you'd have to do like the calculations to figure out like how many CFMs would create so much like air to go over the thing. But most of this stuff, because like so many people have done it, like you can find it all online. Like you don't have to do all the calculations yourself, you know.
Unless we're growers, we're like DIY people at heart. Like,
you can do all the math yourself.
Well, math. I mean, maybe someone else will do the math. We'll just follow the instructions, But
yeah, there's tons of instructions like that. Like, I had one of my friends build one for me. Kind of, I started, messing around. Like, I wanted to grow some oyster mushrooms and some cordyceps and stuff. And so, I just built a 2 foot by 2 foot box, and I got like a 2 foot by 2 foot by 12-inch hood filter that went in there. And yeah, it's great. You can do mushroom work, you can do plant work, it's like the filter I think is around $300, and then you have to build the box, and I had a fan from some other stuff laying around. So.
Real quick, while I'm still on this flow hood thing, and I'm sorry to just detract us so much, but how often do you change that filter?
It depends on your filter, where you got it from. There should be some sort of rating. A really nice flow hood would have like a pressure gauge on it. And it would tell you like the gauge should be in here. If there's not enough flow, your hood's either.
It's almost like
that's the best answer, right?
Yeah,
a dirty environment would be faster versus that makes a lot of sense.
So the reverse osmosis system I just got installed in for my home is a similar method of gauging whether the filters need to be replaced, and so it's kind of cool to hear that being used in other applications. I like that.
Yeah, we have that on our IPM like breather thing, because I have like a spacesuit at work, and it hooks air to your hood or your helmet, and it detects whenever the filter's not flowing as much, and then we change it. But yeah,
you don't want to be like gasping for air while you're in the middle of the grow room stuck in one of these space suits.
I don't think that would happen. You would just be pulling a lot of stuff you don't want through.
Oh, okay.
Like
it just wouldn't work as well.
Xeritol and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
But but it's nice. Yeah. You won't be able to smell for a couple of weeks. Don't worry, it's not COVID.
Just Xeritol.
Yeah.
Every now and again, you'll hear of commercial growers, usually in an outdoor agricultural setting, dying from exposure to some sort of pesticide that they're spraying without equipment on. So
Yeah.
that's a real thing in the cannabis industry. So
Yeah, I'm starting to see some of the CRA bulletins talking about starting to push. You have to have a pesticides license and stuff now. I'm like,
Sure.
oh my god, this is getting to be annoying.
yeah. Well, I mean, you're using real agricultural chemicals that
Yeah.
have real effects and MSDS and
The problem is, Spartan, if they hadn't probably already found out that so many places weren't buying the proper shit for their employees, they
Right.
wouldn't have to do that and force it upon them. But it's like,
right.
Yeah,
I mean, at Mitten, we got nice shit. He went, bought like, I don't know,
He's
this
got a
thing's like
spacesuit.
$1,000 or
I ain't got no
$2,000.
spacesuit.
It doesn't cover. It's a helmet. It doesn't
just
cover
a
my
hood,
skin,
but it's still nice.
but
Yeah,
I don't
lungs,
care.
man.
I've read all this stuff. I just don't care. I don't want to get you don't want to get Xeritol in your eyes, and you don't want to breathe any of these things in. So
Nah.
yep.
that does both of that. So me and the other guy that spray are fine with it. But
Smell it. Ugh,
yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Good point too.
Oh.
But yeah, so I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sure there's some shicey places, that have been like, oh, here's a hobby 3M mask. know,
Yeah, we just
If you even
Hardware
get a
store.
mask, holy shit.
This. Yeah, if you even get a mask, like the guy's sequence is talking about in fields probably didn't. They were probably like, why do you
Right.
need a mask? You're outside.
And then
And
some
then they
people are
send 'em
using
along.
products like 30% peroxide, and they think it's safe because it's peroxide, and get all burned up, and you're like, what the hell?
Mhm.
And that's because so
Just
be
just
safe out
pH
there.
up and down. I mean, you spill enough
Yeah.
of that
Oh,
on your
yeah.
skin, and it's
I've
Not a
become
bad
immune
day.
to that. It's funny because some of the people at work, they'll get burned, and I'll be like, I haven't gotten burned from either in a while. Now, if you mix them, and that'll burn you no matter what because it heats
Yeah,
up.
don't mix them. Holy shit.
It heats up.
Well, I don't know about all of the pH and up and downs, but at least advanced nutrients, which is really concentrated.
yeah.
But I know the up or the down, it'll just burn some of the people's skin at work if they touch it directly
Acid.
without
Probably the
mixing
down.
it.
That's acidic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
The
it's probably
strong
that,
acid,
but
I know someone that
Yeah.
was like working under a shelf. This isn't a commercial facility, but he was working under a shelf and like bumped something, and the bottle of advanced nutrients, a pH down, I guess, whatever the acidic one, it fell off the shelf, like tipped over. The cap was just off enough where it just poured all over his back. Of course, like
Ooh.
it dries it off and everything, but half hour later, his whole back, like it's all red, burning, like everything.
Yep.
Like it's just chemicals all the time.
yeah,
Everything we use, even
We got-
microbes, you know what I mean? Like that's a different kind of thing too.
we got pipettes for each, like long 10 mil pipettes, and I think one time they got mixed up, and it was like literally smoking or at least making vapor or something. Because you don't want to mix pH up and down.
You heard
That's
it
for
here
sure.
first, ladies. They said 10 millimeters is long.
Yeah. Hey, I can go measure that thing. That's at least a foot. So
10
yeah,
millimeters
How
is not
many
a foot.
how many millimeters is
10
a foot?
millimeter pipette is a foot.
He's talking about the girth of the pipette is 10.
He must
Oh,
be.
the
He's gotta be.
yeah, these things aren't
Use
girthy.
milliliter.
Yeah,
He might mean milliliter as well. Yeah, you're right.
that's why if I didn't say that, yeah, milliliter. But
I know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
She's heard this argument
Rachel
before.
knows. Yeah,
she gets it.
but
They can still just barely fit if you drop them. They'll still barely fit in the fucking liter containers.
yeah, fit
that's
in the
right.
flipping pH container. We've lost some to where the point you're so frustrated, you're just like, go get a new one. We're done with that one. It's living
That
in the
one now
container
lives in there. That is his new home.
Yeah, yeah.
3
But-
Q-tips floating in my ISO bottle that I couldn't
Yeah.
get out. It was stuck in there.
Forever. Yeah. How much? So Rachel, what do you use to clean? ISO, bleach? What's your recommendation? I'm a bleach guy myself.
Cleaning for like your grow space.
For your tissue culture space. Like let's
Oh,
say
yeah,
you're setting it
bleach.
up and you're about to get bleach.
Yeah, 10 to 20% bleach, like without
Yeah.
question. And you need to like I use it in spray bottles and squirt bottles and stuff. So you need to change those out at least every 30 days. Like because bleach, when you dilute it, it's not stable like it is when it's concentrated.
Oh. I never knew that. I got a
Yeah.
bottle of
Interesting.
unstable bleach now. Then right over here.
Just
Biggest-
listen to Stocks and
I'm
Anna's
always growing
potential.
up, like
That's
my
where
mom
it's not
always had a
gonna.
bottle under the sink, and so I always have one around. But now I'm not.
What do you do
Yeah,
with
it's
your
uns-
unstable bleach, dude?
The tip is a smaller bottle. That way it gets used up quicker. so-
Yeah, that's yeah. Now I know.
Diluted, you can do, but I mix up like 10 or 20% bleach and I just have it in a spray bottle, and then I just
Yeah.
keep spraying my surface. I don't mix it up every single day because it's in a spray bottle. But like within a month, like I put a piece of tape on with a date, and within a month I just change it out. It's a new 10% bleach.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, see, I've
Good to
always
know,
been a
good to know.
big proponent of bleach because I always feel like after you clean with bleach, that smells clean. That's
Well,
the smell of clean
Yeah.
to me.
Let me just add a little to that. Also, when you walk down the hallway after he has cleaned something and your eyes are burning from the
Yeah.
amount of bleach in
Yeah,
the air,
then
that
that
smells
means
clean to
You,
him.
if my eyes are burning, you think any bugs or parasites are living? Fuck no. So I'm
Actually, it's
A
crazy.
okay with that.
True.
Bugs
I
can
go by
live
the
through
old.
bleach,
What if-
which is bugs can live through bleach. Super crazy, but it happens. But also, the reason that I prefer bleach is because, like, based on all of the literature, it's the only thing that's going to kill hot latent thyroid.
Okay.
So whether it's surfaces, you're going to actually prevent, what I mean? Like, I have plants that come in all the time. I have to make sure nothing is living in my area. So it's
Yeah, you have to be
Only
hyper
thing.
vigilant because you're getting the shit that's fucking infected.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're asking you to clean it up.
I go by the
Man.
old standby that if I can't see something on it, it's probably clean, so I don't bother cleaning it.
Do you I recently found out Clorox wipes don't actually really have bleach in them, by the way, so I'm pretty disappointed. I was told that it's not the
Oh.
same amount or
was
something.
You know, that makes sense because they don't ruin my clothes when I touch them on my clothes.
Yeah, see, exactly. So it's like a diluted, but
It's just
I
Why
had
do you think I wear white everything?
Good
yeah,
point,
yeah.
good point.
So Rachel, let's say in the future there's gonna be huge tissue culture labs.
Mhm.
Do you think they're gonna have like a surgeon has a specific person that's meant to sterilize? Like they sterilize everything for you? Or
I mean, like, there's probably definitely going to be a person that's like washing tools and packaging tools and autoclaving tools. But for like the like cleaning of the plants, we just like sterilize them at intake and then they're sterile. So everything else from that point on needs to remain sterile. So, there'll probably like in a bigger facility, you would just have like a breakdown of jobs, like somebody's going to make the media, somebody's just going to make media all day long. That's all they do, or they're going to buy a machine that makes media. And then, you're just going to have your tissue culture techs that all day long are just subculturing and, doing intake and, dissecting meristems, whatever their forte is, But yeah, I mean, I think that's how a lot of the bigger places do it now. There's a couple of places in California that are like absolutely huge doing this.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
wondering about scalability. Like, how big can you get in terms of this?
you only need 300 square feet for one lab, so you could really
Well, for 16 strains. she said.
yeah. So like
But what if we're talking like 1,000? What if we're talking 10,000 strains? Like, what at what level is this? Like, maybe like we need to break this up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you just really need to start like you need more space, you need more hoods, you need more techs, you need the right kind of people to oversee something like that, to make sure everyone's doing their job right, So I mean, it's yeah, you're gonna need it's a huge. I think it's like Conception Nurseries has like I think like 18 people on their floor or something like that.
oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. They have probably tons of funding, but they are huge. And like this, again, this is just catching up with cannabis, like
Yeah.
other crops, other plants, ornamentals, and agricultural commodities both do these types of things. It's standard.
Oh, okay.
So
How long has tissue culture been around? Like
oh
What'd you
man, I should
say?
know this from the late 1800s, I think, for plant tissue culture. Oh, this is such a
holy
Some-
moly, I would have thought I would have
Really?
said
Early
60s or
1900s.
70s.
Yeah,
Maybe,
same.
but
Maybe
holy
60s.
moly. Before did we even have microscopes then?
oh yeah, definitely.
Well,
Microscope
hold on. Was it that it was like the 1850s that we discovered bacteria? Was it then? Like I know
All right, I'm
there's
gonna
a
start
certain
Googling, so you better get it right.
Yeah, it's the early 1900s, late 1800s, like right in there. Botanists like were super into being able to preserve things, and then the agricultural
you guys want
colleges
to start
kinda
talking
came
about
about and started
academia
studying
and
them.
science again?
Yeah. Hey,
That's where this
oh
comes
well.
from, man.
No,
It
that's what
says
I'm saying.
1676. 2 men are credited today
Damn.
with the discovery of microorganisms using primitive microscopes in 1676.
All
That's
right,
cool.
when do we start sterilizing our surgeon tools? That's what I want to know. 'cause that had to have been like the late
Wouldn't you
1800s.
like to know that? That was probably the 90s. They
So
decided to
when
stop
did
using
people
spit.
3 years ago.
Last year, man.
When
Last year.
Xerotol came
Yeah.
out.
They were more clean in the tissue culture industry 100 years before. No, I don't know, but
No,
that's
no,
crazy.
Now, Rachel, I'm usually here in tissue culture for cleaning up plants or getting rid like hoplite and viroid, things like that. But
1885.
but we kind of touched on it earlier a little bit. But another good thing about tissue culture is almost, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's almost a way to be able to store genetics.
Yeah.
Do you think it's ever going to be a viable like business model to where that would be popular, to where it would be a gigantic store of strains that could be tissue cultured for clone propagation or something, or like the synthetic seeds you guys were talking about even? Oh, okay. Because that's where I think the tissue culture shines more than anything.
Right.
Yeah, of course it's great to have the cleaning properties, but I think something that everybody could benefit from is just to be able to store strains and stuff, especially when it's restricted to how many plants you can hold and things like that.
It's
Are you
taking the idea of phylos and tissue culture and actually doing something with it, you know, and I think I agree.
Are you talking like a storage, Spartan? Are you talking like a self-storage unit? Not self, but a storage unit where you would just be like, hey, I need you to store this, and you'll come back in a year and grab that maybe.
I'm talking about like a nursery that you walk into with a plant and say, when I let you know, I'll give you advance notice. I'll let you know when I need some clones from this. And then you come back to a clean plant and you
That's
come back.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, so we actually do that. We store people's genetics for them. A lot of people kind of like elect to do that after they've cleaned them up because their plants are already in culture. So like, why not just you hold on to them and then I can pull back from them every so often and remom them. Some people are like super into sharing their genetics. So sometimes I'll have like extra plants and people like are interested in, whatever they could pick up that, some projects obviously like are private and those genetics don't go out, but some people are like, hey, I'd love to share this. So if anybody wants, a cut or whatever, that's
nice. That's see, they're out there for girly.
Dude, she's bringing up so many questions for me right now. Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay, I want to know what temp, for how long you can store them, and what
hold on for girly, because
hold on. Big. What temp for how long? And then the third one that you probably can't tell me is what do these contracts look like? I'm curious about the business perspective too.
I want to start from the beginning though. I want to start from the beginning process.
1889.
No, Rachel, I have a clean clone at my facility or house, and I'm like, I want to tissue culture this. And what do? I bring you a leaf, and what then happens?
Wait a minute. What are you doing with the tissue culture? Are you wanting to?
I've got 7,000 pounds of it, so I'm good on flour for it. So I just want to store it for a while.
Yeah. Then we just clean it up, throw it into node culture, and we put it in our genetic bank. And every so often, we'll have to like go back to it and make sure it's good and get it to its next stage.
But like, let's say I'm saying like I bring you. I forgot what you said, but I bring you a leaf, or do I bring you a clone?
A couple cuts.
Okay, a couple cuts. So I bring you that, and then let's say I'm a flip flopper. How long can I get before I can get it back? I need that one. How long would it take to get another cut from you back?
It usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks to pull it out of storage and get it back rooting. Yeah, depending on what method you use, but the method that I choose to use, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, that sounds quick as hell. That's way quicker than I thought. So yeah, that's not too much of a heads up you need. I was thinking,
how long can you keep it like that? Because you said something about like kind of redoing it, but what about in that initial state? How long does that last? And then I assume that you could just do it indefinitely from there, as long as everything's sterile, etc. But
Yeah, and you just need to keep giving it like new media. You just need to keep doing what's called subculturing. So every so often it'll get so big and you'll have to either cut it down and put it into multiple new containers, or, try to slow its growth a little bit by
It's
putting
like
it
a
back.
mother plant that gets too big.
I was gonna say, it kind of sounds like transplanting and
Yeah,
training.
yeah. Yeah, and that's why I said, like, in the last, when we talked before, I said, like, it's work, and I'm not saying like, oh my god, it's hard work and nobody can do it. It's super easy, everybody can do it, but it's not like a substitute for like taking care of your moms, because you're still gonna have to, make media. You're still gonna have to subculture periodically, and even if you do do some longer term storage methods, you're still going to like check on those and make sure they're okay, and eventually subculture them again.
Real quick question. It has to be, I mean, looking at like Mitt and Kaneko, right? And the size of moms that they grow up, they're like, I don't know, 8 feet tall. They're like 6 feet wide. There's maybe like 1,000 clones on them at every given point. Those got to be easier. I mean, relatively riskier, but easier to propagate from, right? Than something like what you're doing. Because while you might be able to get it down to a cellular level and clean it up, it is more pricey and a lengthier process, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I think the advantage is that, like if you got hop latent, she can clean it up. And
Oh,
then
huge
hold your strain
advantages.
for a while.
Oh yeah.
And then you can keep growing your mom or whatever. And then, like she said, every 2 months or whatever, you can pull a new batch of clones from your tissue culture stock.
But this isn't like I'm not going to employ you to like be
That'd
my
be nice.
mother, like,
right.
tender, like the one that's providing me with my cuts and stuff. You are securing my genetics, like that DNA.
Yeah, and think of like you just described, that mother, the size of that one mother plant. Think of the space you just saved.
that's what I
Right.
wanted, that's what I wanted to key on is I don't know any growers, commercial or home, that don't need more space or wish they had a bigger grow room, bigger tent, bigger whatever. And that's what I think tissue culture at like our work would be. Yeah, it's like she said, it's the same amount, it's the same, you're not doing less work, you're just swapping work. So now you're going to be checking these tissue culture, but I can do all the strains at Mitt and Kaneko instead of those giant moms. I can have it in 300 square feet instead of 1,000 square feet or whatever we have it in.
You can
like,
cut your mom room down to like 300 square feet, and then you're
Yeah.
only raising the moms for your next crop. And then you're always able to remom. If your whole garden gets bombed with something, you get russet mites, you get powdery mildew, whatever it is, you can just push that all through, and then you're starting again with clean clones at the beginning,
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Damn.
You're just kind of like, you can always kind of restart that,
Send it all to the hydrocarbon.
I got
Just think of the IPM aspect of the 90% of your moms are in the fucking refrigerator. So when the mites come through, they ain't getting fucked with. You know what I mean?
Culture also has its own, just like cannabis, you have to worry about, mold and mites. There's the same things with tissue culture, so it's not impervious to those same problems. So you still need to be paying attention to what you're doing and, have really good protocols, just like you do in your garden.
Yeah.
Do you think it's got to be less challenging though, right? Like I feel like while it's like living, organic biological material, there's something about the amount of mass there is to it that just seems to like it's going to attract a lot less bugs, right? So I feel like that fight is going to be a lot easier, and the fact that you're kind of sterilizing in the process, where we can't necessarily really we can sterilize us going into it maybe, but we can't really sterilize the organic life that we're growing, the entire steps of the way, where it seems like once you kind of get past the airlock, like you're good, whereas
as long as you keep it good, as long as everything's good, I take implants from a lot of different people. So,
which is the riskiest thing like any of us can do,
it's the riskiest thing, I do testing and I do the tissue culture for different people. So like, I am seeing bugs coming on people's plants, and I've seen that some of those bugs can live through some of the sterilization solutions, like it's things that, you just, the more the better you can just pay attention to those things, so like experience is really key in like being able to understand what you're looking at and what you're seeing, just like in the garden, like there's a totally different level between someone that can walk in and can say, this doesn't look right, and someone that's like, what do you mean everything's green and fine? You're like, oh, there's bugs everywhere, or there's 16 spots of powdery mildew that I've seen. How did you not see this? So you have to know what you're looking for.
So
I imagine in the colder temperatures and in the dark, even you're dealing more with fungus that you're worried about more than anything, probably molds and funguses.
Yeah, molds and funguses, like fungus gnats sometimes like want to go in
Oh,
'cause they like that media. It's like sugar.
yeah.
There's sugar in there. So
tasty.
yeah. And like some certain small bugs can get underneath the lids depending on what kind of lids you have. I mean, there's a whole host of problems that come with it on its own. So like it's not without its own problems, but it's also one of those things. If you have really good protocols, you manage it well, you're doing the things according to those protocols, you're gonna have a much better success rate,
So these things are stored in a little fridge, right, or a big fridge, right? The peach or
it's 75 degrees while they're growing, right?
yeah.
So
Okay.
that's not a
So
refrigerator temperature.
all
That's
right.
room
So that's where. All right. I was thinking at some point with tissue culture, there's a fridge involved, and that's why I was like, how are these gnats getting inside of a fridge? But no, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's like room temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're basically constantly growing this just like a plant, right? It's not
Yeah.
like you can I mean, okay, there's a question for you. Can you freeze it at any point and kind of like keep it in its state, so to speak, and then bring it back, down the road?
You can't.
It's
I've
got to be like
seen people
cryogenic or
do-
something.
Yeah, I've seen people do some
Yeah.
cryopreservation, and I haven't really looked into it myself for a couple of reasons. And one of them was because I read one of the papers on it, and they were saying that like the plants that they pulled out of cryopreservation didn't seem to have the same phenotypical similarities to the plant
I
that
believe
went.
that. Yeah.
And so like we kind of talked a little bit about how plants can do weird things with their DNA. And so I don't know why that is. And so for me, like when people give me their genetics, it's important that I'm giving them back what their genetics are.
Mhm.
And so that's why I have like this, I use the storage methods that I use because I know the plant that I'm giving you back is what you started with. And I know, and again, I trust the methods that I use,
Mhm.
Let's
Okay.
change gears. I think the chat will find the topic of the what did we call it? The artificial seeds or the
synthetic seeds.
synthetic seeds that we
Oh.
talked about in the podcast. I think the chat would be pretty interested in hearing about that real quick.
Yeah. So it's basically just taking an axillary bud, which you have your main stem and you have a leaf that comes out of the main stem, and that little spot on the top there is called the axil. And so in that axil, a whole new branch can grow out of that axil. But before the branch grows, it's just kind of like a little tiny bud, and you can dissect that out and kind of dissect off some leaves, sterilize it, and encapsulate it in agar. Yeah, and it's just like a little jelly seed kind of a thing. And you can store those in the fridge, and then you should be able to bring this bud back out and kind of grow a whole plant from it. They're
Huh.
fun.
Neat stuff.
They look cool.
But when you've got them encapsulated, they're shippable. You could actually send them around or are they not really that stable?
I mean, you'd want to control the temperature and you should be able to ship them. When people started doing this, like, I don't know, like it became bigger, 3 or 4 years ago, that was kind of the dream. Like, oh, we could ship these everywhere. And then people have this exact copy of this plant. But the reality of synthetic seeds that I've found is they don't come out of storage very well. And they just aren't as like hardy as other plants that go into storage. So, I mean, you've got people that ship cuts around, and it's like virtually the same thing as far as the DEA is concerned, right?
Yeah.
In terms of it's just plant material. It's not like an actual plant, and it's under 0.3% THC, so they're not counting it as drug type cannabis. So I mean, I think at that point you'd have just a better luck taking a cut from your plant and sending it around. I think all the people that had that model of like sending out masses of synthetic seeds and being able to like propagate their cultivars that way, I don't think any of that worked out for them, or else I think we'd be seeing it everywhere at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have you had the experience with a synthetic seed that's grown out, didn't do so well, like you said, but then they, maybe cloned it again or something off of that, and it fleshed it out, or is it just permanently it wasn't well, Because like sometimes you can do that with mothers and stuff. If you can, or if you switch from like organics to salt, you might want to do a mother and then take a cut and then grow that instead. But
Yeah, but the problem with these is like they just, you've got this little tiny green bud and this little tiny jelly. But after a couple months, like mine all start kind of like they just start like turning brown. Like the
okay,
green isn't green anymore. And I don't know if it's just because they have like zero access to like oxygen at all.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they just don't like being submerged in that complete gel enclosure. But like they just, when you do them initially, they look cool. They're brilliant, they're shiny, they're green, they're healthy. But as time goes on, like they just start turning yellow and brown and not, whereas like my other storage methods, the plants just, they look healthy the whole time.
okay,
So I just,
gotcha.
I try not to spend time on things that I don't think are beneficial for me or my clients or are going to work out well. And like I did it to do it because I thought it was like a viable thing. And at this point, I just don't, maybe somebody will come up with like a winning combination of how to make it work. And it'll be like a totally different game and it'll be cool. But for now, it's like really one of those things that I teach people because it's hard to understand how to do it if you're reading it. It's like nice to have somebody show you how to do it. And it's super cool. Like it's so
Yeah.
cool to do.
Yeah, and maybe one day they'll get a better jelly or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But shout out to Eric Jones. He's got a question for you, I guess, as we head into hash time. See if you want to answer that. Do you think plant cell growth technology like the company BioHarvest will be the future for standardization of plant matter?
Plant cell growth
So I
technology.
guess
to
he's
pull that
asking,
up.
is tissue culture going to be the new standard instead of clone banks? I don't know if that's
I
what he
think
means.
if that's what he's saying, I do think that's what it's going to get to. Because you're going to have people, again, everything's just like, it's going to be clean. I think you're going to be getting facilities that move towards just having, depending on the size, having in-house tissue culture. They're going to have all their own clone,
100%.
all their own strains. They're going to, again, just pull out, root, remom, and they start with a clean plant every time, and it just,
How big of an investment are we talking? Say we got 50 to 100 strains. I mean, honestly, for a commercial facility, how big of an investment is that? 10, 20, $50,000?
I mean, I think like $20,000 to $30,000 is reasonable.
It's
You're getting
pennies. It's pennies, and
Well, then you also have to pay someone too on top of that. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're already paying someone to take care of your moms, right? Like
she's like, I got you.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
She knows.
yeah, get her in there. Make her a lab. Build her a lab. Let's go.
We're not the biggest facility at Mint Canco, but we have a ton of strains in our veg room, and honestly, if we could store 16 of them in tissue culture form instead of giant mom form or constant resetting form, that would be cool with us. So like, to be honest, 16, double our facility, 32. You don't need too many to be a benefit. I think.
But
So
I know where
that's pretty
Spartan's.
cool.
I know what Spartan's about to say, and at what point do you just outsource this to someone that's?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like she said, it seems like I don't know, but that's the toss up. That's the toss up. Is it worth it? Is it worth it for you to build a facility or a room, and then, like he said, you have to hire somebody, or maybe 2 or 3 people, like Rachel was saying, where you got people in charge of each thing of the tissue culture. So, is it worth it for you to do all that or outsource it?
Speaking of which,
do you have a tissue culture place near you that you'll be able to get to?
Strains, it might be worth it if you were wanting to protect your strains.
Right.
Oh yeah. If you were paranoid.
Because that's why
definitely gonna want to do it yourself.
That's why I asked about the business aspect and the contracts and stuff. Like, that's not really a NDA, you know what I mean? But like, there's got to be some sort of like, not a non-compete, but like a non-release of these genetics. Like, do you guys deal with those types?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've had an attorney draft that up for myself just to release like certain genetics, right? And yeah, you know what? And I've got to change it up here. We brought the cowbell.
Nice.
It's hash time.
Oh, I like that. Yep.
I had to prepare for this one, guys. But so yeah, the part of that was the contracts. The other part of it I want to know is what is your education, your background, that what brought you to this, and what kind of, maybe I'm a 16, 17-year-old kid, right? I'm about to go into college and I wanted to get a degree. And 6, 7, 8 years ago, we kept telling everyone to get bioscience type degrees. Does that still apply here? What if I wanted to work in like a tissue culture lab, maybe 5, 10 years down the road, what kind of education would I need?
I mean, I have a biology education, and I was really fortunate. Actually, got to talk to one of my professors today from my undergraduate. He does these weird Lego mosaics, and I mean, they're really cool. They're like, he did a giant civil rights mosaic. And anyways, I went to Eastern Michigan. I have a biology degree. I worked on a project there in a tissue culture lab doing genetic engineering, which I didn't agree with at that point in time, but the project was to conserve water. So the end was good. So I worked there for a long time, and I was actually planning on doing a PhD, but I kind of saw where that went, and I changed my mind, and I did medical research at U of M for 13 years. So
hold on, you changed your mind. Why? And I'm bringing this back to the academia and all that. I want to know, is it related to that?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, all right. I feel vindicated. Thank you.
It's really funny. You're not the only one with that opinion. I have a good colleague who I feel so bad. He did a lot of mycology research at the same institution that I worked at, and he had a totally different experience. Like, his PI stole his work and published it all and gave him zero credit. And he's really, and he has like zero, like, there's just nothing good that
there's no recourse. Yeah, there's no recourse.
No, there's no recourse. And it feels icky forever, I think, And I'm like one of those people, I'm really good at seeing like the best parts of things, but I also, try to find the parts that suit me. And so I loved working in my lab. It was amazing. Our research, unfortunately, we followed the whole project through. We got like the F2, heterogeneous population with all of our, modifications. And we used a device to measure the actual gas exchange on the leaves. And unfortunately, it didn't like do anything, but following a project through all the way is really good. Working in a lab, dealing with regulatory issues in a lab, you know what I mean? Like, knowing how to dispose of things, knowing
high
how
level
they're supposed to be set up, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like experience just being in those settings that comes into it, and the troubleshooting, the problem solving, having mentors that are there to like help you develop your thoughts and help you, figure out where problems are, and I think that's huge. So I feel like all those things kind of helped me be able to just say, like, I can do this. One of my friends worked at a grocery. I was a caregiver for 11 years. So like, I had this experience, I have this network, and one of my friends was kind of like, you should do tissue culture for cannabis. And I was kind of like, you're crazy. Nobody wants genetically engineered cannabis. And I started looking into the reasons why people do it. And, for this pathogen remediation, for hop latent fibroid remediation, for genetic banking, and all these things. And I was like, okay, well, maybe there's some merit to this. And so I kind of started doing it, and started following people on Instagram, started getting just people's different protocols and formulas for media to see, kind of like compare what I was doing with what they were doing.
Practices, so to speak.
Yeah. And like,
that's important.
Secret recipes, I wanted to see what people's secret recipes were and what people were doing. So
not so secret anymore.
Well, I mean, they're widely kind of passed around at this. I mean, there's a lot of people that, did all these. One of the bigger rooting recipes comes from a guy named Synergy in California who, a lot of people I know use his rooting protocols, like there's just certain people that have like done good amounts for this.
But hold on, again, bringing this back to cannabis and the bro science, right? It seems to be us that are making the progress on these forefronts to some extent. And while there certainly will be a higher level of funding that will progress things further, it seems like we're kind of on the cutting edge, right? And I just wanted to acknowledge that earlier. I wasn't trying to be
that's true. That's true. Most of these people have degrees from academia to do what they're able to do and know the things they know.
Well, and they have funding to be able to do it. You know what I mean? Like, literally, I learned how to process this plant because of YouTube, because of Reddit, because of social media forums. And I'm, this is the reason, that is primarily the reason why I'm on this show today, because I want to give back. I want to bring people like you on that know more than me and provide this knowledge to people that are younger and maybe less experienced than us and are coming up in this industry, and that will advance it, down the road. I'm not going to be the one to do it, but I'll be the one to start the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's kind of how it started too, with like a lot of the extractions and stuff, a lot of these people are like, hey, wait, I've been in a lab, I can do that. And like, you're right, unfortunately, like biology and biotechnology, like everyone's like, wow, you work in this like big, shiny lab. And it's like, yeah, and I get paid big, shiny coins, like, there's not a lot of great jobs. They don't pay well. So it's kind of cool to see people being able to actually use their education for those things, and that was like a lot of those extraction labs, were straight up like protein people.
I'm glad you're using your education for us and for cannabis.
Right? Me too, man. Hell yeah. Did you were you a smoker before you? I mean, I guess maybe you don't have to answer this, but like, was cannabis? Were you an enthusiast? You know what I mean? Like, what brought you to this industry? I know you kind of shared about that, but
yeah, definitely. Cannabis personally has like helped me tremendously in my journey I've had, I mean, as everybody, goes through their life, they have a lot of things that happen. And for me personally, cannabis has helped me get through some of the tougher parts in my life, some of the loss, but it's also helped me, I think, kind of like slow down a little bit and not be so anxious.
Amen.
Yeah. It changed my life. I didn't do this as a teenager or as a kid because, I went through DARE and I saw that like, people that smoked weed were slow and didn't want to do things. And I was
this
like,
is your brain on drugs. Here's an egg cracking.
You saw the commercials where we flattened ourselves on the couch.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen in person.
I think the girl's name was Rachel. And I swear to God, she goes, Rachel used to be fun. Then she started smoking weed.
Hey, Jamie, pull it up.
Now she doesn't sit on the couch.
Pull it
I
up,
remember
Jamie.
that one.
I know you can find it.
I was like, I'm not a person that sits on the couch. This would never suit me.
Yeah.
It was like literally.
But I am frying
to
eggs.
be fair, I did learn in DARE that, like psychedelics helped people like, learn more about themselves and see God. And so like that was, the only thing, and that's actually like how I got into cannabis is I found somebody that sold psychedelics and they also sold cannabis. And eventually I like tried cannabis, at some point.
It is a gateway drug, you're telling me. No, I'm just kidding. I actually, I'll share something in that regards in terms of like the religious, side of psychedelics. I actually, I certainly smoked cannabis before, but I never done mushrooms. And I actually went and talked to, I'll just call them religious leaders, priests, pastors, whatever you want to call them, from several different churches that I wasn't even involved in to get their just candid perspective on psychedelics and mushrooms before I ever did them, because I wanted to know what they thought with their like background experience and education from where they came from about psychedelics and God and that connection, because it was just a learning process for me, So I talked to a Catholic priest, a Lutheran minister, and I kind of went like just everyone I knew that was involved at a higher up level. I was like, hey, what's your perspective on this? I just want to know, because I'm going to take this journey, and I want to hear what your perspective might be, even though you might have never like experienced it. I want to know what you think from like, maybe it's that academia kind of standpoint, right? Like, or that, textbook standpoint. I wanted to hear it. And I don't know if that helped me or not, but having those perspectives, I think always helps.
Yeah.
So you're going to go through all that and not say what they fucking said?
Pretty much they all told me not to do it.
Okay.
He walked up to me and said, you want to lick a toad?
Thankfully now there's great research coming out of some of the bigger institutions like Johns Hopkins, where people who are interested and maybe have a lot of trauma and things like that, and depression, maybe untreatable depression, maybe addiction, can find help in some of those protocols that are available for them. I think that's one of the most helpful things that's come out of the recent psychedelic revolution here, is that people are getting help for things that they currently could not be helped with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think where the real power is going to be, and
there it is
the here
Rachel,
it is.
What are you doing?
Does she say Rachel though? We gotta hear it.
So I think we're rolling you out, but She must have had that
I'm
good
never the person
push.
laying on the couch. Just
Yeah.
That OG.
That's a really good. She had smoked that
Oh,
Donnie
man.
man.
Yeah, but back to the psychedelic. I think it's interesting. I think they're finding out that it's creating new neural pathways,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
something
when you
your
have
brain
in combo
doesn't
with
do that much, you know.
in
yeah.
combo,
So-
man. Yeah, the it doesn't have to be large doses. That's kind of what I was gonna get
Yeah.
my point. I was gonna
The
say you can have
microdosing,
it could be a microdose and then combine it with some lion's mane and bam, now you're starting to build new neural pathways and shit in your
Yeah.
brain. That's exciting stuff.
What's the lion's mane good for, Spartan, again? I always forget.
That's lion's mane is in conjunction with the psilocybin has been shown to help to build those new neural pathways, but not lion's mane by
together.
itself. Yeah, but
Yeah.
lion's mane by
Yeah.
itself has always been helpful with treatments for like the diseases of the brain, like dementia.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Lion's mane.
Things
Yep.
like
There's
that.
2 classes of drugs. One's found in the mycelium and one's found in the fruiting bodies, and both are tremendously helpful. My other life, I have a license in Michigan to forest or to sell harvested
harvest?
forage mushrooms. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
I
cool.
pay attention
Cool.
to all that research too, and I find them and do that too. It's fun. I love mushrooms.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Have you found
That's
some
cool.
lion's mane in Michigan? I know they grow. I haven't seen them in the wild.
Yes, I've never found like that typical lion's mane, like that big ball
The
shaped one.
tendrils.
But
Yeah.
I always find these like coral ones where like there's more like tendril arms instead of like a
Okay.
big
Okay.
mass.
Interesting.
So I always find this
Different
other
phenotype or something, or
it's a different species, but
Oh,
it's in the
okay.
same family. And a lot of times these botanical families or mycological families are named based on like their structures, and a lot of the structures produce like the same types of molecules. So these molecules, like these hericines, I read this stuff and I don't know how to say it very well.
that's
but
me and terpinolene, terpinolene. Like I just can't. There's so many different ways to say it.
God damn academics. Couldn't use regular words.
Why Latin? Why?
But just like the same way, like rishis, like there's a lot of the same classes of molecules in different reishi species. You know,
That's,
even though they're
yeah.
not always
How many species of Reese's can there be?
reishi?
There's- How many Reese's Pieces can I eat?
There you go.
A lot.
much
is the
for the
answer.
woodchuck
A
chuck.
lot.
I
Okay,
saw
so-
I saw this thing on mushrooms the other day that was 2 different things. There's a mushroom that only grows on dead bugs or on bugs.
That's
Cordyceps.
There's a
cordyceps,
species.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then the other one was
Last
a
of Us,
super
man.
rare one down in South
Cordyceps
America.
are good too, man. They're like adaptogens, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually really
What is
good
that-
for
what is
humans because
that?
it doesn't like infect us. So yeah,
Adaptogens
take
get
it
your
away.
body's preset for stress, basically, so that
Oh, okay.
you can
And
handle stress
cordyceps
better.
specifically gives you adenosine, which adenosine is what's in like ATP or adenosine triphosphate, where you get all your energy from.
Yeah.
At some point, like Chinese athletes were taking this to give them like a edge and racing.
Okay.
A lot of
now
It's really popular in UFC and stuff.
Joe
Rogan has
Rogan?
it in his line of his supplements. He's got one.
Oh,
That's hilarious. Yeah, he's all about that shit. When I looked that up for the first time, and I saw cordyceps mushrooms. I saw this shit growing out of like
So
ants
cool.
and stuff, and I'm like, oh hell no, I'm not taking that. You
I
know?
saw it growing out of a cicada. That's what they had
there you
a
go.
picture of. I was like, that's nuts. Did it eat the cicada?
Well,
All right, guys.
new-
Well, think of you're familiar with Bavaria bassiana.
right,
How
Yeah,
we use it for an insecticide.
Oh,
It works in
yeah.
the same way, man.
right.
that's true. I guess. Yeah, good point.
Mhm.
Until you watch this HBO series or play the game called The Last of Us, and you
Oh.
realize that's what the whole zombie apocalypse is about. Is the cordyceps infected
The
fucking
fungi are
humans.
taking us over. It's just not gonna
Depends
be
which
overnight.
of the 100 zombie stories you're reading, or, how
Right.
it-
Yeah,
Pick a mushroom, I guess, or a fungi.
yeah.
or a virus, or a,
Yeah.
Oh,
either above.
The other mushroom was only grown on the bottom of landslides down in South America.
What
They had
the
to, which is dangerous because you're not supposed to hang around the bottom of a done
Oh, really?
landslide. Yeah, but they were photographers of mushrooms. There was a little video, but that was cool. That was sorry, not just landslides that end near a creek or a river or something.
Yeah,
So
but you
it's
didn't
human.
say
Literally always
you didn't say
something
what was
else.
special about those mushrooms.
What
Dave.
did I? Oh, they're more potent than Cubanus in terms
By
of
a
psilocybin
lot.
by a lot apparently. I forget the name because it was some Latin, a mushroom name.
Some
But
non-American.
If I find it, yeah. But yeah, that was interesting. Mushrooms are crazy. fungi
so
is crazy.
I had to look it up. It's Paul Stamets, right? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul
Right.
Stamets.
So he's the one that had the idea, or from what I understand, of the lion's mane along with the psilocybin, and that's
Yeah.
what I was.
It's the
That's who I
Stamos
was.
stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's who I was trying to recall a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago now, when I had brought those capsules that someone had mixed those two, and he's like, this is the way we provide them because this is the way that Paul thought they were supposed to be, basically ingested. So that's that's what we're sticking to. And he was the first one that I had come across that actually was like, no, like we're sticking to that. This is what we do. It's I don't know if it's 50-50, but I think it was, we'll just call it a 50-50 ratio of the two. And each capsule is 0.2 or whatever is a microdose, something good to go on. And the whole jar about this big was a full gram. But I thought that was a cool way of providing it and putting it out there, because you can go out and try to find that yourself, but if that's the way it's supposed to be done.
A lot of people starting to kind of market those things and fill that niche. I mean, and it's nice because there's people making the things, you're supporting local people, and you're also probably getting a fresher product.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to see some, and maybe I think I've seen something that they're starting to work on, but like potency testing.
That's
what
actually
I mean?
So where I do my lab testing, there's a group that shares a space and they do potency testing for psilocybin. So
see, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because like right there, they're talking about mixing lion's mane and a psilocybin mushroom. Well, what mushroom? What? How much psilocybin? I can get lion's mane, but
the advancement.
So that's really cool because now we're gonna be able to mess with that and be able to tell people, no, it's actually 2-to-1 lion's mane to I don't know.
A year ago, I didn't know there was
that psilocybin dose.
Yeah, and I've always had a problem too with it because it's like people are giving out these things, and it's like, well, you might be the best mushroom grower and be banging off of sweet genetics, and and this thing just blows me out of my face, and that stuff I buy from you, it's bigger mushroom, but it's less potent. I don't know, so it's always been like
it's very
I don't want to
similar
mess with all. Yeah, but and
it's way different in the same way though, because a mushroom can have the same psilocybin content and this big of a mushroom.
Yeah, because they don't the cells stretch instead of multiply.
I'm saying in the very same mushroom. If you let this mushroom grow to this big, it has the same amount that it did when it was this big.
I understand. This is what I'm getting at. Okay, psilocybin is okay. It's a question. Is psilocybin the THC? Right, whereas there's maybe a terpenes that are affecting or modulating that effect.
Oh, good question.
Is there something else there that we're not
strictly psilocybin?
Yes, because we know that there's different strains that affect us differently. A 0.2 dose of one strain is going to affect us way differently than a 0.2 dose. That eighth that we were supposed to take back in high school now, if you take that today, you might not come back wherever you're going, right? Like there's certain strains that are they're a totally different level. And I don't know if that's psilocybin or it's something else, but it's certainly a level.
What do you think, Rachel?
Now. I think you're right. I think a lot of different strains have different effects on people. The group that does a lot of the microdoses and things, Colonized Creations, they have a lot of information on the different strains and kind of like how they affect you. And the guy that you talk to, Dave, there, like he knows all of these things because he's been, studying it for so long. So he'll tell you like, well, this will kind of, if you're looking for this type of an outcome of your situation, this is probably a better strain for you.
But hold on, like, is this only
addiction?
A sativa?
I asked him about addiction for one of my friends, like, hey, I would like some microdoses for this. And he's like, these two are the best for that. And so, I don't know. He helps me.
So this to me sounds like, all right, so sativas are going to work for this effect, right? And indicas are going to work for this effect. It seems like we're still, and to be fair, I think we are in the infancy of the discovery of this fungi, right? This plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there other factors other than just a psilocybin level?
What's a mushroom made of besides psilocybin?
Right. Are we even testing
a
anything
typical
else?
cubanus? Or do they actually differ in material from a Amazonian versus a?
Because we know about phenotypes, right? They might look different, but what is really like down to the molecular level?
I'm wondering if they've
discovered. Like when we talk about the beneficial molecules in like lion's mane or cordyceps, these are like proteoglycans and glycoproteins and all these different classes of molecules. And like a lot of those things even have different like chemical properties, which is why for a lot of those things you want a dual extract where you are extracting with ethanol and hot water, because you're getting two different types of molecules with the different extractions.
Wait, did you just say water's a solvent? I just want to clarify. Is water a solvent?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the universal solvent.
All right, I'm just curious.
That's some hash maker stuff, Rachel.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Hot water.
Nothing new with
Never-ending
mushrooms.
argument.
So okay,
Yeah,
and
hot
so
water extract. There's like a technical term for it, but hot water extract, yeah.
so that means so
Sorry.
you just said like some beta whatever, and so that means maybe that mushroom that guy grew has more or less of it, and and mine has a different amount, and that'll
Or
affect
even the
my
different strains, the different, just
completely
like
different
different strains.
molecules.
Well,
of
yeah,
cannabis
that's
have
what I
different
mean.
terpene levels, different strains of
Okay.
mushrooms could have different levels of these other molecules inside of them,
because I've had it work that way when I used to grow. Shout out to Ralphster Spores. That's who I've used for like 10 years, and they were accurate in their descriptions because we wanted no body high, all visual, and it gave us that on the one we bought. So that's interesting to know I always kind of thought, oh, maybe they're just selling it, they're just writing a nice paragraph for me, but no, so that's really cool. That I can't wait to see what the science community comes up with that, looking into psilocybin dosages and other
Where
substances in it.
I think it's as encouraging as in the psychiatry field. Can you imagine a psychiatrist as a trip sitter that knows what they're doing? Oh my God, what kind of progress could be made there?
Holy crap.
Oh yeah, well essentially, if you can create a neuron, essentially that's creating a thought somebody can't have right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's hard to do sometimes. I mean, we all know if there's something you want, fix on yourself, you can't just snap your fingers and tell your brain to do it.
Right.
So that's kind of cool.
A long time.
Exactly, a year, so that's gonna be neat. Yeah, I think that's cool. Yeah.
How much of an effect does things like media, environment, not strain or genetics, but like what the grower input is? How much of an effect does that have on not necessarily the quality, but like what you're getting out of a mushroom?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I see people get really good quality. I think it's like the health, right? Like the health of the mushroom, as opposed to like the actual substrate itself, because it seems like as long as it can use the substrate, it's going to do okay. Yep. For some of the more medicinal mushrooms, like I don't know if the lab grown mushrooms have the exact same
chemical
ratio of everything as like a wild forage mushroom, but for like the psilocybin mushrooms, like they've looked at different like precursor inputs, and they don't really like, it doesn't seem like the plant cares, like or the mushroom cares. It's going to do what it's going to do anyways.
Okay,
interesting.
That's what I'm wondering, because there's different companies and you can buy sterilized substrate, and I've noticed they all have their own little recipe. One of the ones I use, they put honey wax or something from bees, I think, in it, and gypsum, and so it doesn't matter, just as long as it's clean substrate. That's interesting.
And as long as you probably have like a really healthy, viable, fungal strain.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean?
Like
it all starts with genetics, right?
Yeah. So that's cool. Well, I bet you didn't know you were going to talk about mushrooms.
I know, right?
I mean, flow hood's a flow hood, right? That's what I keep hearing.
It's kind of cool to know. Yeah, all this stuff kind of coagulates skill sets.
Technique. Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, because I've always wanted a flow hood for not doing that still air stuff at home with fungi. Be a little bit cleaner, but I never went out and made one or bought one.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Maybe I'll get one so I can do a little bit of home tissue culture over there, and a little.
Just a box fan with a furnace
filter
taped to the back of it, man.
HEPA filter. You need a nice HEPA filter.
A HEPA filter.
When we're not using the hash room, we'll clean it up with some bleach, and
there you
boom,
go.
Beam.
We'll bleach bomb that, and then I'll be ready to go.
Just don't do the Lysol bomb. I don't think that's very good for you.
No, I've
It's like
done that
Axe Bomb.
a couple million times already. But
I
that's
hope you
literally
had your
used to be my technique that I learned off the forums. It was like you go to your little grow mushrooms face and you bomb the hell out of it. And I go in there with a mouse and
His mask.
and then yeah,
Hilarious.
and then I'd be coughing and yeah. But good to know. I'll just grab the bleach next time. But yeah. So yeah, how's everybody's gardens? Mine's we're getting the garage almost ready. I got the electrical boxes came in, the timers, and we put
Well,
up
they
some
came in
drywall
today?
today. Yeah, they came in finally, so
Sweet.
they're here. I'll get the electrician out this week to do that. Nothing real new in the house other than I got a disco fries. 3 out of 4 were males, so I only got one
Damn.
female going, but it's a beaut. So nothing
And
other than that.
your the bagel sort of come down.
Oh yeah, I trimmed up the 8-inch bagel, and that smells pretty good. But I think it needs a good cure to really really pop. It's not
Very-
popping.
A few males too.
Rachel,
Yeah.
do you ever get into growing cannabis at all?
Yeah, so I was a caregiver for 11 years.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Glad
like
to
I mean,
hear
I
that.
have these plants that I'm always growing all the time, but yeah, so I actually kind of have a little bit of space. I think I'm gonna flower a couple out just for fun. 'cause I've
How
been
many
Hell
times
yeah.
did you get hop latent viroid, which made you want to get into tissue culture to eradicate the
Um,
disease?
It is
far
that
as
why?
I know, none,
And knock
but
on
I
wood.
actually wonder if towards the end of one of my gardens we didn't have some in there, because now one of the people that I work with, I know he has like a ton in his garden, and we were having kind of like the same problems back then. But yeah,
Can
yeah.
you maybe give some tips to some home growers to maybe look out for hop latent some things that they could look for their situation maybe?
Yeah. So the biggest indicator I always find is brittle branches. Like if you are pushing on your branch gently and it snaps off, that should never happen. You should have to like work to pull a branch off of a cannabis plant. If it breaks off really easy, that's like the number one indicator. Just get rid of it. Another thing people see a lot of is like this lateral branching, where instead of that axillary bud that we talked about when it grows a new branch, instead of it growing nice and kind of like at a 45-degree angle, it wants to grow kind of flat out and then come up. That's another symptom. A lot of times I notice it's not like a sure sign, but it's like one of the many things that can add to it, is I notice around the leaf margins, like the ends will just kind of like curl up just a little bit all the way around the leaf margins. Sometimes that can be an indicator, poor overall growth. Unfortunately, if you're seeing it in flower, it's, probably too late, but you'll see that like the plants just kind of stopped, they just stopped developing all of the glands, and they just stopped.
Is there ever consistency, or is it almost strain dependent? Or even environment dependent? Because it seems like there's never like a consistent way to identify this. Maybe like triggers or things that
So I think there's a couple things going on. I think one of them is the stage of infection, right? Like how far along the plant is in its infection. Like if it's new and maybe your mom just got infected, so a couple of your plants have it, a couple of them don't, maybe the viral load's still really low. I think that's like one thing. I think when that viral load gets high, it's another thing. But something really interesting that I think it was Toomey Genomics was talking about. There's a couple companies that are bigger that actually do some of this research. And one of the things they were saying is, hop latent viroid is a single-stranded RNA viroid. It has no protein coat. It's literally just a piece of RNA that kind of folds back on itself, making a secondary structure. And that secondary structure gives it a lot of strength. But it needs the molecular machinery inside of the plant cell to reproduce. And when it does that, it being a single-stranded RNA, it doesn't have the same proofreading mechanisms. So it's very prone to errors.
Oh my goodness. This is zombie apocalypse for weed, guys.
Well, these errors can change the way that it's going to like fold on itself and what it's going to do. And so it's 3-dimensional structure. And they think that 3-dimensional structure is part of how it works. And so maybe depending on, what different mutations your plant has, it might be more likely to be more pathogenic or pathogenic seeming than if it has other mutations. So I'm not entirely sure about that, but now that we're kind of starting to understand more about the molecular biology behind this, it's not, it's a completely likely scenario.
Well, and the cross application, it seems like we're applying again other science, from other industries into this because we're experiencing these issues. My question is, if it's a 3D virus, what is the 4D vaccine?
I don't think you can have a vaccine, unfortunately, because it's just a small piece of RNA. Yeah, I mean, they talk about using RNAi, which is like RNA interference, which is small pieces of nucleic acids that will kind of like stick to this RNA and render it useless. And this is like the plant does this on its own. So it will make these things, it kind of like learns the virus and it will try to send off
kind of like white blood cells.
Exactly. Just like
okay. That's my limited knowledge of like bio 101 for you.
Yeah, your whole cast of immune cells, because you have all kinds of cells working together for your immunity. So, and you have antigens, all these things work together, but it's like the plant has like a similar thing. And so, they look at different ways to do that, but then it becomes tricky because you don't want to gum up the molecular machinery so much in your plant cells that your plant's unhealthy. So it's tricky. And then even then, like the plant kind of, when it has this RNAi, it can kind of work around it. Like it's just not a sure thing.
Wait, it doesn't.
How quickly can it evolve? Yeah, how quickly can it evolve and change into like have defense mechanisms like we're experiencing with like antibiotics, for example, right? Like, is this going to be like a maybe 20 years down the road where we're still dealing with this virus?
You said it's a relatively simple virus.
But it's out there in circulation, just like the common cold,
okay.
And you have people growing everywhere. So it's going to be really hard to like, I think, completely eradicate it.
So basically we need everyone to repopulate within your lab, and then we'll be clean on the other side and we can start anew.
But I mean, if you go outdoors,
it's kind of like genetic. I'm not going to say it.
Well, but like nettles and hops are also natural hosts for hop latent viroid. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? It's going to be out even outside of that or in wild plants, it's just going to be out there.
Do we know how long this has been around?
You said the virus?
In cannabis, I want to say they sequenced it out in 2019, but I'm not sure when hop latent viroid became a problem in hops. I want to say it was the early 2000s.
Okay, so this is still a relatively new thing.
Yeah, because we didn't even know viroids were a thing, I want to say, until like the early maybe 2000s. Yeah, because like
I don't remember reading about them until post 2010, like probably mid 2010s, but I am not involved in that community at all. This is just through my reach in the depths of the social media community in cannabis. We kind of just learned about them maybe like 2016, 17. I feel like.
Yeah.
Rachel, I think I've actually even heard that this can be transmittable even to the seed. Have you heard the same thing?
Yeah.
Like
they show about like a 8 to 10% transmission through seed rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even people thinking, I run from seeds all the time, I'm not going to have to worry about it. You still have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You're talking about the RNAi defense in the plant.
Yeah.
Does the plant naturally produce that, or will we have to? Yeah. Okay, so a healthy plant should have that. So a really healthy plant should have a good chance of not.
Or does it not systemic?
We also are looking at developing like a sequence of RNAi that would like be able to be applied to be an antiviral.
A vaccine. Come on,
because there's I think what is it? Maroon or Maron Bio. One of those, it's a company that produces IPM, and like some of their products are based off of boosting the plant's defense system to make it better to fight whatever.
Yeah, like heartburn.
And so I'm wondering if that's the same idea with that. So my other question is, what happened to tobacco mosaic virus?
Nothing happened.
It's still there.
Still there.
So we just moved. Okay, because all right. Because I
don't think that it's it's gotten in a lot of cannabis. The ones that I've seen more of are beet curly top. I mean, not personally, like the samples that I've never tested anybody's samples that have beet curly top here, but from like the literature that I see, it looks like beet curly top is going to be maybe a bigger problem than tobacco mosaic.
That's,
Wait, what's that? What's that? Beet curly top? What's this?
Beet curly top.
A new virus?
I mean, it's not new. It's been out there for a while. Like we've definitely had the stuff to test for it.
But I think that's what it is, right? We only know about these things when we test for them, and we only know about them because
with academia.
Well, right, because we're applying the science that's already been done in other industries and applying it to this, right? And yeah, there's value there. I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna.
I think it's also when we take something and we put it in a commercial setting where we're like basically monocropping and putting a ton of the same thing all together,
or we have a lot of money involved.
Yeah, well, yeah, you literally probably have farmers out there with certain crops that, like, if they had a virus that it didn't affect them in 40 years, but maybe ruined everything for the next 500, doesn't matter to them, you know.
That's why they got crop insurance.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So yeah, I can just imagine you just can't get rid of it. Like you said, it's outdoors, so like hops is on hops. Well, how many people grow hops? Probably a lot. And how many people grow tobacco? I'll tell you, a lot.
Down
you
south,
know?
yeah.
At least I lived in Pennsylvania. A lot of people grew tobacco. So,
and you know, you may not realize it, but beets are a commercial commodity for their sugar. So beets are more popular than you would think. It's not just like for Greek salads.
Sugar beets.
I've been to the Shroot farm, and I've gotten some of the best beets in the world.
Travel anywhere in the thumb in September, October, and you're gonna see these tractor trailers that are the size of skyscrapers going down the expressway with sugar beets basically spilling out of the side of them, and it looks like they probably weigh as much as a cruise ship. It's insane.
That was so when I was up in Kalkaska at Freedom Green Farms, they were harvesting potatoes, and I could not figure out what it was at first because it was like this. I mean, there's just crates on crates on crates, and they're stacked on these fields, and it's like literally like a small building, and you're just like it's like a small multi-floor building, and you're just like, what is? And it took me a while, and they were harvesting all the potatoes. It was like the same thing. It's like crazy to see how much food it takes to feed people.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Just take a trip over the United States. You really realize how much land is not only not occupied, but actually just farmland, and then how much of it isn't even being farmed because, I mean, maybe it's not able to be, or just isn't even occupied yet. Like, there's just so much out there.
Was it you for Growley that took the pic of the
the radial farm? Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that's got to be 1 million acres or more. I don't know.
That's probably like one corporation. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably one farm, like, you know, that's running that. Like, there's just an ungodly amount of land and crops, and every single one, you could tell almost every single one was something different, you know, or at least a different stage. Like, they all had different colors to them.
The aliens come here and they don't even need to put crop circles. There's somebody's been here. Yep, see
we'll just carve them out to, you know, make the map, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry about your potatoes.
So Rachel, what do you think you're gonna? What are your plans? What do you plan on? Opening your own business or doing your own thing?
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry. I have a business. I do this commercially. I set people up with. I set commercial facilities up with tissue culture labs. I kind of work with, you know, how big they are, what they want to do, you know, what they're looking to do. I do it in house for people. Like these plants I'm showing you are actually some that I need to plant out because they're all nice and rooted.
Oh wow, nice.
For some clients.
How I met her because she came to Freedom Green while I was there.
Yeah.
Do we need to be licensed to be able to do this in Michigan, or is this just like a benefit of being a grower? Like, is this something I can? Is there a commercial license for this?
You just need to have the knowledge for growing.
30 to 50 grand and hire Rachel. You know, like we'll be good to go.
Exactly.
And I mean, even like I have a lot of people that come through my classes that are like smaller people, you know, just have a couple things and they're doing it themselves. And, you know, like, I mean, it's scalable, like we said, you know, like just like mushroom cultivation, it's scalable. You can get a small laminar flow hood, you know, a rack, couple lights, you know, whatever you need for temperature control and, set up a smaller facility. But then when you're like looking at scaling it up, there's different factors that you just want to take into consideration. So it's nice to have like kind of a good plan before you start and you're like not backpedaling, just the same thing with, cannabis facilities, like you can set it up a million different ways, but
don't retrofit. Oh, it's so expensive.
Exactly. Don't
it's
retrofit.
So expensive.
Start with a good plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that what? But is that what you want to? Is that what you want to keep it, or would you like what are your aspirations? Like you would like to grow into something else, or is there something you want to pivot completely away from it? I mean, what? I'm just asking. What are your?
I like what I do right now. I love the teaching aspect. I love working with people and helping them grow. Like I was in academia for so long, working with people. Training people, helping them accomplish their project goals, learning new projects. That's like one of my favorite things to do. So that's been a ton of fun, tutoring people. Like it's been great to go around, meet people, help people, reach their goals, set up their labs. But I mean, it's nice to it'd be nice to scale it up a little bit, to be able to offer more services to people. And that's kind of what we're working on. I'm working on some automation, some online classes, and some working with our submission. We also do all the testing. When I started doing this, hop latent viroid was a problem. It was like, well, now we should set up all the testing because like I've already done all that. I worked in a lab. I've bought RT-PCR machines before for labs. I've, set up all the assays for the research that we do. So it wasn't that big of a stretch to like get an RT-PCR machine and, start getting these assays and start running them. So we use medicinal genomics assays and, we test for hop latent viroid, beet curly top, tobacco mosaic. You can send in all your samples and we'll test for these things. So we offer those services too.
How hard is it to test for something like one of these viroids versus, a potency test like THC versus a terpene test? These chromatography where you
make
you're
that
basically
machine
checking
do
these
that
spikes versus.
Well, before she answers,
hold on, let me finish. Versus a male versus female test, which is essentially checking chromosomes, because I know there's different levels of these tests. That some are really easy to do and some are really hard to get right. What about you?
And before she answers,
those pesticide tests are hard because they're using like machines that have like plasma to detect heavy metals and stuff. Like some of this stuff is like legitimately crazy. For hop latent viroid, it's similar to like what we're doing for a gender test, where we're just looking for a nucleic acid sequence. So whether that's RNA or DNA, based on, like hop latent viroid is an RNA thing. But when we're doing gender tests and sexing your plants, we're looking for DNA because that's what your plants have.
Right.
You do sex tests?
Yeah. Yep.
What's your charge
in Michigan? What's
your turnaround rate? Let's hear it.
Yeah. Usually like 2 to 3 days. It just depends.
And the price
depends on how many ice storms we have in one.
Why don't you just DM me the price?
I'll throw it out there because
we'll work something out.
Of business.
For real. Or if you want to put it out there,
coupon code for Growly. We'll set
I
something
love
up.
sex testing. I got 9 plants I want to test right now.
It's reasonable. It's between $10 and $15 depending on how many you submit.
Yeah,
if you're
fair market
submitting
value.
Hundreds of plants, just contact us and we'll work on a reasonable
They'll
price
hook
with
it
you.
up. They'll hook it up.
Where do we? And just so I know, where if we had to mail it, where would we be mailing it? What city?
Ann
Or if we
Arbor.
had to drop it off.
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor. I can come
can
drop
drive
it
it
off
there.
and get a cookie and some Winewood. Because they got a cookie shop I want to go to.
Now it's Ann Arbor based city. Do I drop off both samples in Ann Arbor?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, my
Okay.
goodness.
So, and what's do you have a website?
Yeah, deeprootsttc.com. It's
Okay.
like on my Instagram too, Deeproots
Awesome.
TTC. There's like a
All right.
link tree, and you can get to my website.
Pull it up,
should be-
Jamie.
I got you.
I see the sequence already
To
on
get
it.
back to your question, though,
Or
for really,
sequence that,
what makes these viroids infinitely more hard to test for, in my opinion, is that you can take a sample from a plant from the bottom of the plant, from the top of the plant, and get 2 different answers.
Right. Whereas you're not going to
Yeah.
with something like a chromosome or a genetics
Right.
or a DNA test.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so
That
for
sucks.
yep, there it is. For our hop latent testing, we recommend people send in 5 leaves as well as some cleaned root samples. And we kind of like batch that all together and run it as
What
one
it-
test.
What does cleaned root samples mean? Like, is that we're like dipping them in xylitol or like dipping them in water? Or
That
like,
means just don't grab a chunk out of the soil and throw it in the bag. Like get the
Okay.
converting media off.
Okay,
You know,
fair
like
enough,
if you
fair
need to
enough.
wash it to get that off, do that. But otherwise, like, yeah,
Got a tissue culture class coming up next month.
oh,
Looks like.
yeah.
They
That's
Learn
cool.
something.
there you go. That's cool.
where's is that in Ann Arbor?
Oh, here we go.
Is that
Oh,
at your lab?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Man.
really, seriously, she's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
Very-
we'll have.
to teach you and explain things.
I have so much
Those are some
learning to
affordable
do.
prices too to get some
Yeah.
tests for people that are really
Right
work.
there.
Yeah, and
Me,
we're really trying
I'm
to
a-
keep everything really reasonable, you know.
Yeah,
And
those
like
are fair
affordable.
prices.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
yeah,
fair.
that's when you said the sex test, that's fair market. I just don't have to ship it to Washington D.C., which is Farmer
Right.
Freeman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've had that mess up multiple times
Really?
because of the USPS in Washington D.C. And then I
Oh.
literally could have just floured it and got my results.
That sucks,
and-
dude.
Yeah, it did because I was trying to show off the service to
Right,
work.
waste of time and money.
I was
and,
trying to be like, "Yo, look how useful this is,"
right.
and then it wasn't, and I was like,
Yeah.
I swear, when
I
it
know.
works, it works."
So today I talked to someone that that runs commercial, and they told me about someone in Bay City, but I'm not even going to bring them up. Talk to Rachel Ann Arbor. I support this.
Yeah. Deep roots tissue culture.
Yeah,
Rachel.
and if you guys mentioned that you saw it on this show, you know, the Michigan Bros Grow Show, I'll give all your customers, all your
This,
viewers.
yeah,
10%.
the hashtag or the coupon code is for girly. You'll get 10% off or something like that.
Michigan Bros Grow Show. Yeah. That's awesome though. I didn't know that. So yeah, I'll probably be using that service for my garage
Yeah.
project with Spartan. So
That's great to know. The whole list.
because we're gonna be pheno hunting like madmen.
Yeah, we are.
Madmen.
Like
And we had, like,
insanity.
a-
We're gonna need big packs.
And like I said, that's where we share that store. So even if like we're not there working, there's somebody there that will accept your samples when they're open.
Okay.
So
Cool.
and they also have that like psilocybin testing in there, which is really
Oh,
interesting.
that's
Do they-
awesome.
Do they like cookies?
No.
Do they like cookies? Because we might come bearing cookies.
Yeah, there's a big. They're big cookies. I had one, and unfortunately, I was in a rush when I got home and set it down, and my dog ate it.
Oh,
Well, he ate half of it, and I was enjoying the other half I did get, but I'm gonna have to find that place, and it's in Ann Arbor. That's all I know.
Where'd you go? Like Crumble or something?
No,
was it
we
called?
had a banker from work, or banker or somebody, accountant or somebody came by, and they brought a big box of them. I don't remember the name. Somebody at work who.
From like an actual cookie store.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
so there's
pink
a couple of
box.
those here now. It's like all the rage. There's like a
Yeah.
couple of designer cookies.
Bro, it was
yeah.
delicious. Like I looked at it and I was like, that's gonna be gross and
This guy
dry and
lives for
cakey.
cookies.
It wasn't. Yeah, I'm a big cookie guy. So that was nice surprise that day at work. But yeah,
Is it,
so
like,
we'll have
Crumble,
to
maybe Crumble is the name of the place.
it might have been that like CC. Like I remember the two words were C, which obviously one could be cookies and then crumble.
I
Yeah.
just remember
But
somebody
yeah.
was really excited about it and thinking like, really, this is where we're going now, huh? Like, just
Yeah, we're going to cookies. But I'm gonna go. Ann Arbor's my pit stop now for cookies, sex tests, and dabs from Winewood.
there you go. Yeah, Winewood, right? They're,
Winewood is-
Yeah, yeah,
so
we
good.
love them.
Yeah, so they're a micro license facility, and I think Planet Jane and Ypsilanti is a micro license facility, and I think those are our only two so far.
I didn't know about Planet
Oh, there's a
Jane,
new
actually.
one because we want to be big on supporting micro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
there's one
check them
there.
out.
You know
This
they're
is just the
not
next time
part
over.
of the dead MCMA, but yeah, that's cool to know.
Yeah.
That's
super
where
cool.
our C shop is. Sequence Yipsy.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, they got a real nice one of those there. Cool.
Yeah.
I like the east side of Detroit. Or I mean Michigan. There's so much stuff.
The Metro Detroit area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we had you on and got a chance to ask all these funky questions.
Super cool. And it was
Yeah.
you were well, I don't know if you have your YouTube pulled up or you didn't even know about, but the YouTube
No.
chat. But the chat has been loving you too. Everybody's been
Okay, I
made
haven't seen
several
any
comments.
of it. No.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I've
there's
been
been several
private answer
comments about, oh, you got
We-
such a great guest, and
We didn't
so
even tell
everybody's
anybody to
loving
switch to live chat, so there's probably a lot of people on top chat right now.
it. Missing
Just
all the
figured-
comments.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been a great show. A lot of info. I've learned a ton. I might have to set up a tissue culture somehow, some way.
Well,
Maybe
you know the
that's-
person to get trained with right here, man.
Yeah, well,
There you go.
yeah, I thought you
Holding
were up
classes.
north, near Kalkaska or something, but
No, I just traveled.
you're
all the way
skipping a
to-
hop. You're skipping a hop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
close.
that's sweet.
Yeah.
All
Well, I
right.
worked at U of M for so long, so Ann Arbor.
Okay.
There
Yeah,
you go.
Spartan's a big fan of them. So we'll be over there. Yeah.
I've been there many times.
Love her. This is why I said. I mean, as soon as I met her, I was talking to her, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I do this show, and oh my gosh, you have to come on it. Everybody will love you." I just knew it. She has so much information. You are so smart.
Yeah.
And you that people just eat up the information that you've got to give.
Yeah, I mean, you guys seem to be trying to like help educate people and putting a lot of your own work and information out there. So it's awesome to be a part of this. Like, thanks for letting me be a part of this for this.
Depends on the day.
Great.
Yeah.
He's honest. We're honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
We
we
skirt the
appreciate you,
lines
Rachel.
between bro science and academia. And,
Oh, no.
Bring them together.
In my opinion, you helped us lean more towards academia today, and I'm glad about that.
It is very
So-
much a bro science lane until we bring someone in the bike lane that has
Exactly,
Yeah.
You got one of them tandem bikes? Can we hop on? But no, that's real cool. And yeah, so I didn't know. And if I get back into some fungi cultivation, I now know I can get it tested, which is is cool to me because I bought a new strain every time. I didn't, because there's so many. And once I learned how they make them, you realize there's even more. So
How many
I
are
buy
we
a new one
talking?
every time.
I really don't know.
It's like how many webs are on a spider web. That could be one. Imagine if you could take one strain. I guess, yeah. If you got 1,000 bajillion seeds off of a strain, it's just like that. You can now have. You're muted for Girly.
Sorry,
think
I don't mean literally,
Ours are a
but
little
like
bit different though.
I
from
don't mean
each
literally in terms of like the genetic possibility. I mean like maybe in terms of like, are we in like early 2000s with like blueberry? You know what I mean? And like there's
Well, I don't think you breed them. From my understanding, Rachel, and definitely correct me. When they'll take an agar dish and they'll put a spore, or a single sample on there, and that'll start to, web out. And I was told if you take, the top web chunk and you take that to another agar dish, that's a total different if you take like the bottom little splice or arm or, and put it on an agar dish. They're going to produce different mushrooms
Right.
possibly.
So it's really just going to depend on if you're going from like a culture or if you're starting from spores. So if you're
Okay.
starting from spores, you basically have like with seeds where you have that genetic recombination. And so your spores are going to germinate, and when they kind of like cross hyphae, you're going to have that. And so your next generation of spores from your fruiting bodies will have different genetic combinations.
Wait, spores to
if
seed is
you-
culture is to clone, is that right? Does that make
Ooh.
sense?
Kind of, yeah. So you take like the mycelium. I mean, it's so the life cycles aren't like exactly the same. Being that like mushrooms exist in like what's called like a 1N state, like they only have one set of chromosomes for most of their life cycle.
Oh,
whereas
really?
humans have like two sets for most of their life cycle. Yeah, we exist in like
Oh.
so it's like a different, so they're very different, but like you could say a spore is kind of like a seed.
Wait, is that all fungi?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've got to go read some books.
Girly's gonna be so anti-fungi. Get that
Oh,
fungus
not
away from me.
anti-fungi. No.
It's
Trust me,
gonna
I'm
be
not
fine.
anti-fungi.
But
I
if you
want the
grow out
fungi
that
to be part of me.
mycelium
I
and
want
you
to
get like
add
a
a
team culture,
chromosome now.
every culture will be the same as that mycelial culture
Yeah.
because you'll have like a single source mycelium.
Okay.
So
I
literally,
see what you're
culture
saying.
is a clone,
If it's okay,
right? But the spore is a seed, and that a spore can give us a different
so if
phenotype of that genetic
Variability, yeah.
representation, sort of. Yeah. Okay.
every
Yeah,
spore's
very
different. Every spore's different. In a syringe, there's like
Yeah.
a million. Let's say there's a
Oh
million spores.
yeah.
Every single one's different. I see what you're saying, but
There's
But
more personality.
if I were to isolate a single spore and put it on an agar dish, and it starts growing, that's it. Whatever I take off of that is the same.
It's not a spore though; it's a culture. You're culturing a certain mushroom,
I can't.
right? Like a certain sample.
Rachel, you're just gonna have to have mushroom.
Don't let me
classes
speak
in
for
the
you,
future.
Rachel. Please.
I'm
Not-
gonna have
not
to.
this
I'm just
way.
gonna have to get a mushroom expert.
Exactly. Yeah. And
I'll have to get Dave on here, even though.
yeah.
But yeah,
But-
David Colonized Creations is like a great source of information. He like me spent a lot of time, you know, in academia, although he doesn't think positively of it at all. But he still like minds the research and like helps people find research that's like relevant to their own specific situations. He's a wealth of knowledge and super helpful. So a great resource if you're looking.
Cool. Well, yeah, we got
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna out of respect, go ahead and ring the triangle for another hash time.
Oh, okay.
Is
I
that a
thought-
USB?
I thought we
is that
moved
a
to the
USB
cowbell.
It is a USB cable. It just happened to be trapped on my triangle, and I'm using a dab tool to hit it. Don't judge me.
Very resourceful.
I literally was grabbing the triangle, and I'm like, oh, there's a cord attached to it. I guess I'll just grab the cord, and oh, there's my USBs. How about that?
Yeah. Well, chat, you got any last minute questions? You better rip them.
Rip and ride. Let's go.
Yeah, chat
'cause-
really didn't come up with a bunch of questions today.
Is
or maybe I was,
mycelium the roots of life?
Blew everybody's mind up.
They
Yes,
were
yeah.
absorbing
All you
it.
can do
They're
is
all
listen
like, what the
sometimes,
fuck?
you know?
Listen, for Groli, did you know living people eat dead mushrooms, but living mushrooms eat dead people?
I've never thought about it in that
True.
specific way, but I like it.
They're already eating us, so it doesn't matter.
But I mean, is a mushroom ever dead?
Forceps.
You can like take a culture out of like a fruiting
If
body.
I-
of a
Or is
mushroom.
it
A lot of
ever
times
alive?
mycelium will grow out.
If I dry it out,
A
if
lot
I
of times you can dry them out. You can still get.
But can you
mushrooms,
bring them
like-
back to
wow,
life?
that's some
They're crazy.
that's some evolution there. They've been
That's
able.
called
Wow.
microbes.
Yeah,
like
mushrooms
Meg, you know
are
that spore
freaks
print
of
I have
nature,
that
aliens from
framed.
outer space.
I could take that out of the frame, scrape it off with a knife into some fucking
Well, I knew
water.
spores lasted. Spores were, but I didn't know you could dry out
A
a
lot of
fruit
times you can rehydrate them and get them to
grab
grow.
like a stem or something. That's cool.
Yeah, I
So,
think they'll
like-
still be able to get them to grow from. If it's
Oh.
not the actual mushroom, it's the spores. But you can get
Oh.
stuff from like dried old mushrooms all the time.
Yeah.
Is
That's
this how we
cool.
get heirloom products? Is we take these old MRE,
We're
you
gonna
know,
bust
the
open
MREs from like Vietnam and shit.
Egyptian coffins. Give
Oh,
me your mushrooms.
I'm onto something. Come on.
You got some mushrooms
me.
in that grave?
Tell me. Have they been sterilized? I need some sort of government assistance. here.
Oh Lord.
Okay, Rachel, we only got a couple minutes. What's your favorite strain? We got to get to the cliche questions.
Oh, yeah,
man.
yeah.
I love like Durban Poison.
Oh,
I'm
good
with you.
question. Have you
You
had
need to go to
Winewood?
Winewood.
Have you
You
had
need to go to
Winewood
Winewood.
Durban?
Dude,
Go to
Winewood
Winewood,
has,
they
like,
have that
my
Durban.
favorite strains, and they do it all.
Oh,
over.
yes.
Like, if I have to go to a dispensary, which I like to support people that I know that grow more, but yeah, that's definitely Winewood is up there with my favorite. They
Yeah.
Durban.
Yeah,
I'm
they
with
do
ya. I'm
Durban
with ya.
right.
Yeah, they
For
do.
Groli does a great Durban.
Yep.
Roy's
Or
got a
I
good
don't know if he
Durban,
still
too.
has it. You still
I
got
do.
that? Yeah.
I do actually have one of it right now, and I think I'm about to send it to Rachel. I'm not kidding you.
There you go.
This is one of those strains that needs to be preserved.
Yeah.
There you
It's
go.
a 4.31% terpene by volume and
Oh,
flower.
wow.
Yeah, it's a 99th percentile type strain, and it needs to be preserved. And it's you know whether it's in my catalog or someone else's, ultimately this genetic code needs to last. And so, yeah, we're gonna need to hook up.
Yeah,
Hell
sounds
yeah.
great.
Well, thanks for having me. I want to shout out the sponsors. We got Dick's Medibles. Didn't want to forget them. And everyone in chat, you've been great. And Rachel, thank you for coming. Yeah, Tara's always got
Thanks,
the
guys.
medibles.
Thank you.
I always got the dick.
Always got
Thanks
the
again, Rachel. It
dicks.
was a pleasure having you on. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
luck.
Yeah,
you
thank
so
you
much for-
guys. Good to see you again, Tara. It was
Wealth of
nice.
Thank you.
knowledge.
I appreciate
Love
you
it.
so much.
Take care,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.